Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if it's your first time here. My name is Miriam, and today I wanted to share with you all my classics literature collection. This video is going to be in two parts, so this is part one of the video, and then part two will be coming out in a few days, just because this video is already going to be very long, so I'm going to look the exact same in part two. I'm just kind of splitting the video in half. So I was looking online at different definitions of what a classic book is, and there are so many different ways of, I guess, defining and categorizing books and deciding whether or not they are a classic. There's a little bit of nuance when it comes to defining a classic, and because of that, I may own some books that I don't share in this video that other people may consider a classic, but I've tried pulling all the books off my shelves that I personally think are classics, and most of them have been published at least 50 years before now, which is kind of how I define a classic, I guess you could say. In this video, I will be including modern classics with the exception of my Agatha Christie collection, just because I'm saving those books for a different video. So this video is just going to be me sharing the different classics I own, the different editions. A lot of them I actually found secondhand, which is awesome. It's a great way to save money. And you can find so many classics secondhand at thrift stores, at used bookstores, which I am very happy about. So like I said, a lot of these are thrifted, and I'm just super excited to share them with you guys. And please let me know if there is a specific edition that you guys prefer, whether that's you like how they look, you like how they feel when you read from them. What kind of editions do you guys prefer? Do you like getting your classics brand new, used? Please let me know in the comments. So without further ado, these are my classics. So my current favorite classics edition would have to be the Penguin English Library ones, and I have a collection here. So I'm not gonna spend time going over each book individually just because this is already gonna be a long video. So I'm just gonna state the title, the author, and whether or not I've read the book. So first we have Evelina by Frances Burney, and I have read this and really enjoyed it. And I just love how floppy these Penguin English Library editions are. They're just so fun to read from, and yep, I plan on continuing to collect more of these editions. Then we have Persuasion by Jane Austen, which I have read, and again, very much enjoyed it. We also have The Murders in the Rue Morgue and Other Tales by Edgar Allan Poe, and this was pretty interesting. I didn't enjoy every story in here, but I do like Edgar Allan Poe's writing style, so this was definitely a fun one to read from. We also have The Valley of Fear by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, one of my favorite Sherlock Holmes stories. We have North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell, which is one of my favorite books of all time. I absolutely adore it. Then we have Mansfield Park by Jane Austen, which I've also read. We have The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte, which I also read and enjoyed. And we have Great Expectations by Dickens, which is the only Penguin English Library book that I own that I have not read. So I do hope to read this book soon. Next up we have Penguin Classics, which are one of my favorites to read from. And first off, we have the Penguin cloth-bound edition of Anna Karenina. And I did read from this edition, but it was a little bit difficult to read just because it is quite stiff. The spine is quite stiff, so I do plan on getting a different edition of this book, but I very much enjoyed this one. Next up we have the Penguin Black Spines, which I have quite a few of. So first up we have Martin Chuzzlewit, which I have not read. We have The Mayor of Casterbridge by Thomas Hardy, which I have not read. We also have Deerbrook by Harriet Martineau, which I started last year and put down just because I wasn't really in the mood for it, but the chapters I have read were very enjoyable, and I am looking forward to picking this up again. Then we have Les Mis, which I plan on reading later this year. Vanity Fair, which I have not read and think I will get to this year, hopefully. Then we have Dombey and Son by Dickens, which I have not read, like a lot of the books I own. We also have The Importance of Being Earnest and Other Plays by Oscar Wilde, which I read and absolutely loved. We have To a God Unknown by John Steinbeck, which I have not read. Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte, which I have not read. The Turn of the Screw and Other Ghost Stories by Henry James, which I have not read. We have Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, and I have yet to read Through the Looking Glass. And an older Penguin edition which I have is Barnaby Rudge by Dickens, which I actually recently read and very much enjoyed. I also have two of the Little Black classics, so I have The Beautiful Cassandra by Jane Austen and Letters to a Young Poet by Rilke. I have not read The Beautiful Cassandra, but I have read Letters to a Young Poet and absolutely loved it. Then I have like a mishmash of different Penguin editions. So I have the 70s edition of The Casebook of Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle, and I have the 90s edition of His Last Bow, and these are the last two Sherlock Holmes stories I need to read. I have a Penguin 20th Century Classics edition of The House of Mirth by Edith Wharton, which I still need to read. Then I have Childhood, Boyhood, and Youth by Tolstoy, which I still need to read. The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins, which I have not yet read. Penguin edition of A Midsummer Night's Dream by by Shakespeare, which I read in high school and would like to reread soon. Then we have The Idiot by Fyodor Dostoevsky, which I am terrified to pick up. And we have Lady with Lapdog and Other Stories by Anton Chekhov, which I have heard amazing things about, so I'm excited to read this one. And then I have a special Penguin edition of East of Eden by John Steinbeck, which I have yet to read, but I am also very scared of because it's big, and I have heard very mixed things about John Steinbeck, so a little nervous to try this one out. Next up, I have a ton of Arcturus editions, which are very colorful and look very nice on the shelves. Although they're not the best to read from, the font isn't the biggest, and you have to crack the spines every time you read from them, which I like to avoid if I can. So first up, we have Heidi by Joanna Spyri, which I just recently read. We have A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett, which I also recently read. We have one of my favorite books of all time, The Blue Castle by Ella Montgomery. Hard Times by Charles Dickens, which I wasn't the biggest fan of, but still an interesting read. We have A Study in Scarlet and The Sign of the Four by Arthur Conan Doyle, so it's the first two books in the Sherlock Holmes series. We have 1984 by George Orwell, which I am very much looking forward to read and think it will be quite relevant. Another book I'm scared of, Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. So this one I'm probably going to keep putting off because I'm terrified to read it. Next up is The Pickwick Papers by Charles Dickens, and all these annotations are just funny parts of the book. This is how hilarious I found this book, although it's not my favorite Dickens so far, but quite an enjoyable read. Then we have Villette by Charlotte Bronte, which I have not yet read. I have another edition of Mansfield Park, and this is the edition I originally read from. And like I was saying, the font size isn't the best. It's quite small, and you have to crack the spine to be able to open the books up. So not my favorite, but they're very affordable, which is why I kept buying them. We have To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf, which I detest and will be unhauling very soon. Then I have two Sherlock Holmes short story collections. I have The Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes and The Return of Sherlock Holmes, both of which are very fun. One of my favorite Gothic mystery books of all time, The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. We have The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo, which I really enjoyed. We also have Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy, which honestly I wasn't the biggest fan of. I kind of had really high expectations and they just weren't met with this one. Another favorite, we have Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Other Strange Tales by Robert Louis Stevenson. One of my favorite books of all time, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. And then three more Arcturus editions that I have not yet read. We have Uncle Tom's Cabin, The Phantom of the Opera, and Animal Farm. Next up, we have the Paper Mill Press editions, which I have quite a few of, and these were also very affordable, so I just grabbed as many as I could. I'll first go over the ones I have read, and then I'll go over the ones I have not read. So first we have 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. This one I actually DNF'd, so technically not fully read, but DNF'd wasn't really my thing. Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. It was fun, just not a favorite. One that I really enjoyed, we have Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. We have Persuasion by Jane Austen. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, and this is the first book I ever read any Sherlock Holmes from, so this is very special to me. Arabian Nights by Andrew Lang, which was interesting. I still don't really know how I feel about these stories. We have Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, which I just recently read. And the last one I read is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, which I absolutely adore. And then the books I have not read, we have A Tale of Two Cities by Dickens, Emma by Jane Austen, which I plan on reading in July for Jane Austen July, Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe, and The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, both by Mark Twain. Then I have the Wordsworth older editions, which I really love, and I found all of these used, which I'm very happy about. So first we have Don Quixote, which I have not yet read. The Portrait of a Lady by Henry James, which I have yet to read. Silas Marner, which I recently read. Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. I have yet to read this one. The Return of the Native by Thomas Hardy, which I have not yet read. The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, which I am hoping to read very soon. And Nicholas Nickleby by Dickens, which I have read. Then I have 4 of the modern library editions, which I also found secondhand. So first we have The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas, which I plan on reading this month. We have The Count of Monte Cristo, which is a brick, and I am very intimidated by it, but I've only heard good things. And then we have Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Next up, we have the Tundra editions of the Anne of Green Gables series, which I absolutely love. So first we have Anne of Green Gables, we have Anne of Avonlea, Anne of the Island, Anne of Windy Poplars, which I think this one's my favorite, Anne's House of Dreams, Anne of Ingleside, Rainbow Valley, and lastly, Rilla of Ingleside. I'll finish going over my Ellen Montgomery collection. So next we have a Bantam Classic edition of Kilmeny of the Orchard, and this is from the 80s. The next three are also Bantam Classics, I'm pretty sure. So we have A Tangled Web, The Story Girl, and The Golden Road, which I love this one. So cute. Next, I'll go over some Virago Modern Classics, which are really, really pretty. I love all the covers they come out with. So we have the Emily of New Moon series. We have Emily of New Moon, and this cover, oh my goodness, I absolutely love it. We have Emily Climbs and Emily's Quest. In the Virago editions, I also have Excellent Women by Barbara Pym, which I have yet to read. And then I have 3 Daphne du Maurier books. So I have Jamaica Inn, which is one of my favorite books, Frenchman's Creek, which I have not yet read. Finally, I have the 80th anniversary edition of Rebecca. This is also a Virago special edition, which is very, very beautiful. And I have read Rebecca. Wasn't my absolute favorite book of all time, but I overall enjoyed it. Next up, I have some Puffin editions, which are really cute. And there's only one of them that I have not yet read. So first of all, we have Anne of Green Gables in this adorable hardback edition. Then we have The Wind in the Willows, The Secret Garden, and also Peter Pan. And then we have Little Men by Louisa May Alcott. And then the one that I have not yet read is Jo's Boys, also by Louisa May Alcott. Next up, we have the Little House on the Prairie series by Laura Ingalls Wilder. And I'm not going to take each individual book out, but I love these editions. And I just absolutely love the designs on the side. Super special to me. And then I have 3 Frances Burney books in the World's Classics editions, and these are all from the 90s. So first we have The Wanderer, then we have Cecilia, and finally we have Camilla. I have a very special edition here of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which has a dust jacket, but I don't know where I put it. I usually take the dust jacket off in the spring and summer because I love this blue cover, and then in the fall and winter, I put on the dust jacket, which is kind of like a darker cranberry red color, and this edition is just gorgeous. Absolutely love the artwork in here. So I'm going to end off part 1 of the video by going over my red spined vintage editions, plus a few extra that don't really fit anywhere else. So first off, we have A Town Like Alice by Neville Shute, and I plan on reading this in June with Kate from Kate Howe, and I'm super excited to get to this. Then we have Inferno, which I am terrified to read. So this, I don't know when is going to be read because I am scared. And if you have read it, please let me know. I don't know why it scares me so much. We have this gorgeous edition of No Name by Wilkie Collins. Absolutely love it and cannot wait to get to it. Then we have Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell, which I have not yet read. We have The Death of Ivan Ilyich and Other Stories by Tolstoy, which I have yet to read, but plan on doing so this year. And then I have this really, really pretty edition of the Vintage Classics, which has deckled edges and kind of has that like newspaper look, and I absolutely love this. And this is Bleak House. I have yet to read it. And then the remainder of the books are just kind of a mishmash of different editions. So I have 2 of the Premier Classics, which are David Copperfield and Little Dorrit. And I don't know if I want to read from these editions just because the font isn't the nicest. But I got these very cheap, so I might try, and if I just can't stand it, then I'll get a different edition. I have a Del Rey edition of Fahrenheit 451, which I have yet to read. And then I have an International Collector's Edition of The Old Curiosity Shop by Dickens, and I found this at a thrift store, and it doesn't actually have the date inside, so I don't know what year this edition is from, but it is very, very pretty, and I absolutely love how it looks on my shelves. So to end off part 1 of today's video, I wanted to share with you guys one of my favorite books just in terms of its aesthetic and how beautiful it is. And that is Pride and Prejudice, the classic novel with recipes for modern tea time treats. And the recipes in here are by Martha Stewart, and then obviously this is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Everything about this book it's just too beautiful. Like these treats that have been decorated, I'm not sure if Martha Stewart decorated these treats, but like, these are cookies. Those are cookies. Like, someone made these and decorated them, and I'm just, wow. So yeah, this edition has really, really nice looking recipes that I want to try out. The one I'm really excited to try is this sugar and spice cake, which looks absolutely delicious. I love this book. I usually have it on display just on my shelf if you guys have noticed, but love it. Love it. So beautiful. And I got it off of Book Outlet for very, very cheap when they had it on there. So this was just an awesome find, and I'm so thankful that I own this book. Okay, so that is it for part 1. I hope you guys enjoyed. It's definitely a long video, but I've always enjoyed watching other people's classics, collections, videos, and I love seeing the different editions that people find, and I think it's super enjoyable. So I hope it was enjoyable for you guys as well, and I hope you guys are all doing well wherever you are in the world. I hope that you had a great day, and thank you guys again so much for watching, and I appreciate each and every one of you. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you are so inclined, and I hope to see you all in my next video, which will be part 2 of my classics collection. Bye!